when we say, till death do us part, this is not even biblical, Marcoleta, to point to the Bible, whether there is such a term there or a phrase there, till death do us part.
Mr. Speaker, I need to make a refutation to the statement of the sponsor and to the challenge. Paano po kung may bibigay ko sa inyo yung verse, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na sinasabi na malaya lamang ang isang nag-asawa at mapuputol lamang yung bond of marriage kapag patay na ang isa sa kanila. What if I am able to show you a particular biblical phrase? Will you withdraw your sponsorship, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Show it now.
Celebration of his 50th wedding anniversary. I would say, Mr. Speaker, I was so happy. Maybe I am so lucky also because I was one of those who was allowed to witness what I perceived to be a very organized, well-attended family rejoicing. In my recollection, Mr. Speaker, it was a very happy and ideal setting for someone who had vowed to cherish the institution of marriage. I'm referring to the Honorable Edsel Lagman, Mr. Speaker, my good friend. When they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, golden anniversary, with his wonderful and dear wife, Cielo. Mr. Speaker, I cannot forget an episode in that family rejoicing where a member of the family stood to describe what kind of marriage best fit the one of my dear friend Kong Edsel and his dear wife, Cielo. Ang sabi niya, Mr. Speaker, I do not need a fantasy to describe how happy, how ideal this marriage is. Hindi ko po ma-recall yung ibang detalye, ngunit ako po ay sumang-ayon sapagkat sa nakita ko pong mga muka ng dumalo, happy faces, talaga pong tumetestigo sa isang matagumpay na pagsasama ang dalawang mag-asawa. My question, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, bakit po kaya si Kong Edsel pa yung nag-sponsor ng isang bill? Bakit kaya hindi na lang iba sa atin? Sapagkat yung nakita ko pong katatagan, tagumpay, at isang hindi may kakailang makabuluhang pagsasama ng dalawang tao, ay hindi ko maisip kung bakit siya pa ang mag-i-sponsor ng isang divorce bill na alam naman nating ito po ay makapagpapawalang bisa sa seremonya, sa kabanalan ng pag-aasawa. May I have some comments, Mr. Speaker?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Speaker. The divorce bill once it becomes a law, is not for everybody. Majority of the marriages in the Philippines, I think overwhelming majority of the marriages in the Philippines are enduring and loving relationship. Just like my marriage with my late wife, Cielo. And to my mind, those happy marriages should not be affected by the passage of this bill. This bill is for the exceptional circumstances where marriage has hit the rocks and is beyond repair. While it is said that marriages are solemnized in heaven, some of them plummet into hell irremediably. So, the state has the responsibility to secure spouses and their children from a house on fire. This is the reason why I have introduced this bill even before my wife and I celebrated our golden wedding anniversary. This is not for happy marriages. It is for marriages which have crumbled and are beyond repair, so that there is need for them to be given relief or a lifeline so that they can be rescued from these constant conflicts which even would affect their children. Mr. Speaker, all countries in the world have legitimized divorce, except the Philippines and the tiny ecclesiastical state of the Vatican. What does this mean? This means that there can be no unanimous blunder in these countries where divorce is allowed. And these countries would include Catholic countries and Christian countries. So in other words, divorce does not offend the Catholic or the Christian faith. And we believe very strongly that thousands of women in the Philippines who are living in disastrous relationship would need this absolute divorce so that they can secure a possible second chance at marital bliss. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the sponsor admitted that divorce law or this divorce bill is not intended for everybody, that it is only targeting those marriages with peculiar characters that probably needing divorce bill. So if it is for a special group of people or marriages, Mr. Speaker, it might fall under the character of a class legislation. And we should not do that. Because all laws are supposed to be applicable to all citizens of this republic. We are not supposed to legislate something that should only be for use of a few, of a special class. I will not agree with the proposition, Mr. Speaker, that the divorce bill should only be for those marriages which are at the brink of collapse. Who is going to make a judgment, Mr. Speaker, that a certain marriage is now supposed to be terminated by way of a divorce? Bakit po nung itong dalawang tao na humarap po sa kabanalan ng isang dibdib, hindi po ba ang malimit nilang sinasabi, for better or for worse? Sa karamdaman o sa kalusugan, till death do us part, Sir Speaker. Hindi ba ganun po yung general premise natin? Bakit po ang daming nag-survive? And the best example is the one of the good sponsor, Sir Speaker. Bakit hindi po ang gawin nating panuntunan, pagtulong-tulungan po natin ang mga marriages na nahihirapan? Kung kukunti naman pala yun, and there are only a special few, sabi ng ating sponsor, we're not supposed to legislate a bill that will be characterized as a class legislation, Mr. Speaker.
This is not absolute. Members of the same class who are affected by the same circumstances would not be class legislation if a law is passed for their benefit or for their needs. So, this bill is not class legislation. Number two, no less than the Supreme Court in Te versus Te declared that the dissolution of a marriage is a merciful interment of a long dead marriage. This is not even biblical. It started in the 15th century in England as part of a literature, which had been followed by subsequent generations. And the majority of marriages in the Philippines are not canonical marriages or Christian marriages. They are civil marriages.
Mr. Speaker, yun daw pong till death do us part is not biblical. I will humbly disagree, Mr. Speaker. Ang sabi po ng Panginoong Diyos, kung ano yung pinagsama ng Diyos, ay huwag papaghihiwalay ng tao. Yun lamang po, ibig sabihin. Nasa Biblia po yun. Walang sino man ang pwedeng magpahiwalay doon sa pinagsama ng Diyos.
Mr. Speaker, we should
Teka po, hindi pa po ako tapos,
hindi ka pa
Mr.
tapos.
Speaker.
Okay.
Yung family code was mentioned also. I believe, Mr. Speaker, the family code offers two alternatives also. One is legal separation and annulment. What is so special about this special group of people whose marriages are so broke that they cannot do something about it? It is as if that everything else cannot be sufficient to restore it or to even improve that relationship. Ano po yung specialty ng group na ito? Bakit hindi na lang annulment? Nandun naman po sa ating batas to. Bakit hindi na lang legal separation? In other words, our family code, Mr. Speaker, addresses this particular problem. And so it becomes very special if, aside from these two alternatives, there will be another one to be offered to this group of unfortunate marriages, Mr. Speaker. Now, the sponsor is asking for biblical precept. I will contribute one, Mr. Speaker. In Malakay, chapter 2, verse 16, tatagalugin ko na po, Mr. Speaker, para po sa ating kapakanan. Ito po is quoted from God Himself. Namumuhi ako sa diborsyo ng mag-asawa, sabi ng Panginoong Diyos ng Israel. At namumuhi ako sa taong binabalot ng karahasan ang sarili na parang nababalot ng kasuotan. Mr. Speaker, if the Lord God Himself hates divorce, sino ba tayo na mga tao lamang na nilalang niya ang siya pang gagawa ng paraan para isulong ito?
Tapos na po kayo.
Baka gusto niyo sumagot muna, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
O pwede po ako magsumagot.
Opo.
Okay. The statement attributed to the Lord that what God has put together, no man shall separate. Itong death till death do us part, wala naman to sa Biblia. Acceptance to my challenge whether there is any statement in the Bible with respect to till death do us part.
Before the challenge, Mr. Speaker, I need to make a refutation to the statement of the sponsor because I have not heard his comment on the verse that I cited, Malakay chapter 2, verse 16, when God said, "For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel." Question is, if God Himself hates divorce, how can one of us, one of His creation, sponsor divorce? Bakit bibigyan po natin ngayon ng special attention, a fast lane to these marriages, unfortunate they may be, but I think they do not have a special place in the legislation that should be general in scope. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. And to the challenge, paano po kung may bibigay ko sa inyo yung verse, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na sinasabi na malaya lamang ang isang nag-asawa at mapuputol lamang yung bond of marriage kapag patay na ang isa sa kanila. What if I am able to show you a particular biblical phrase? Will you withdraw your sponsorship, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Show it now.
What is the answer, Mr. Speaker?
Please show it now. If you are accepting the challenge, could you tell us where in the Bible this phrase till death do us part?
Mr. Speaker, I'm citing 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 39, which reads, and I quote, "A woman is obligated to stay in her marriage as long as her husband is alive. But if her husband dies, she is free to marry whomever she wants, only it should be believer in the Lord." So till death do us part talaga. Kailangang mamatay po yung isa para lang makapag-asawa ka pa ng iba. Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. And I think my good friend is honorable enough to accept the challenge. I accepted the challenge, and I think it is for him to withdraw his sponsorship. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
What the distinguished interpolator quoted is not the phrase till death do us part. In fact, what he said was only with respect to the woman, not to the husband. It is here that when the husband dies, the woman can remarry. But it would be better if she does not remarry. That is completely different from till death do us part.
Mr. Speaker, I did not know that my good friend, the sponsor, is after the exact word, till death do us part. But it was only a matter of romanticizing it, Mr. Speaker. The couple are before or is before the solemnizing priest or anyone who is in a position to celebrate the marriage. So until death do us part is to romanticize the impending relationship. But the biblical anchor is the same, Mr. Speaker. I hope my good friend could comprehend the simple import of this particular biblical passage.